Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Orphan Black Season 2, Episode 5, Ipsa, Scientia, Potestas Est. That was a weird title, but whatever. Some sort of foreign title, but this was by far the best episode of the season. Oh my god, like, seriously, this is the Orphan Black that I love. I'm not saying last week's episode was bad. It really wasn't bad. It was just not as good as the other episodes. But this episode was by far the best episode of the season. So much amazing shit went down in this episode. I mean, seriously, my only complaint with this episode was there wasn't a huge cliffhanger. I wish there was. And there was a character I wish that would have gotten killed off, but they didn't get killed off in this episode. We'll get to that, but either way, this episode was amazing, and I loved every minute of it. Everything that happened in this episode was absolutely amazing. So, let's just get to it. Basically, this episode had, I'd say, one plot throughout the whole thing, because there was a lot going on in the episode. By the way, there was no Allison in this episode, which I personally didn't have a problem with it. They didn't have Allison because they could not fit her in this episode. There was too much other stuff going on that they could not fit Allison in the episode, which, even though I love Allison's character, I'm fine that they didn't have her in this episode, because they had so much other stuff going on. So, let's just get to the episode, because, as I said, I really enjoyed it. A lot with Dr. Leekie in this episode, I must say. Speaking of Dr. Leekie, the first scene starts with Dr. Leekie. We see Dr. Leekie and Rachel. They're cleaning up the mess in her apartment left by Helena and Sara, because, they were basically Sara was kidnapped by Daniel in the last episode. So, because of that, she's cleaning up that whole mess. Helena has left stick figures on the walls of her apartment, so they know who killed him. Dr. Leekie says there's a kinder, gentler way that Rachel's heavy-handed tactics, but basically, Rachel says she's just begun. So, I mean, that's a pretty big thing. Right away, they're on the hunt for, Helena. So, Sara brought Helena, so we are trying to figure out where will Helena go next. We know that Helena wants to help Sara. We know that Helena is not going to go against Sara. Where are they going to go next? It turns out that Sara brought Helena to Felix's house. He gets her some new clothes, and you know what's hilarious? Even when you have someone like Helena, who's usually very creepy, and one of the things I do love this season is they are making us care about Helena more this season, but either way, she is very creepy. Her storylines are usually very creepy. You put Felix in there, it's hilarious for some reason. I mean, I don't know why, but they just make it hilarious when Felix is in there. I mean, seriously, it's hilarious. But that whole thing was really funny. Basically, he gets her some new clothes, and Helena does not like him very much, so Sara says she knows someone who can help figure out what happened to Helena, but he needs Felix to chaperone her to him, because they don't know what's actually going on with Helena, why she's so demented, why she's so crazy, what actually is wrong with her. So, then we see Paul, who, yes, Paul is back in this episode, who, honestly, I liked Paul in Season 1. Now that he's gone bad, I don't like Paul as much, and I think that's the thing, we're not supposed to like Paul's character, which I don't have a problem with that, because I like that we're not supposed to like him, but basically, Rachel's in a meeting with Paul and Dr. Leekie. She tells Paul that she needs a new monitor. You know, she was so self-aware her entire life, and she knows she needs one, so she tells Paul he's replacing Daniel, who, Daniel's died. I don't know if she's aware that Daniel died, but she tells Paul he's replacing Daniel, and Dr. Leekie says that his stem cell in vitro tests are going really well, and actually well enough to possibly heal Cosima. Because Cosima's dying, so he wants to try to help Cosima. So Rachel tells him to stop the test, and that until Sara heals, then Cosima will suffer. So that's obviously not a good thing. Speaking of Cosima, Cosima's in a Skype call with one of her colleagues, Scott, and she learns that back in the day, any synthetic DNA projects would likely be military. So then we see Delphine, who, of course, Cosima doesn't know if she can trust Delphine, because in that last episode, Allison told her not to trust Delphine. So, it's really interesting here to see what she was going to do next. So she learns that Delphine shows Cosima she accidentally received the stem cell results that Dr. Leekie was supposed to get and share. They wonder why Leekie wasn't sharing, because they're compatible with Cosima. So then, literally, we go to the next scene. It's another Skype call. We see Sara, who calls Cal, and she talks with Kira. Basically, Cure, it's cute scene there, you know, she calls Cure a monkey, but Cure says, I'm not a monkey, I'm a leopard, and I thought that was kind of a cute scene, but Cal then gets on the video, and she informs Cal that Daniel did not die by his hands. You know, Daniel actually died, by Helena killing him. That's how, he died. So she's informing him what actually happened. So Felix then brings Helena to Art, and this whole episode, we did not know what Art was going to do. You know, the whole season, Art has not had too much to do. We don't know whose side he's on. We didn't know if we could trust him. It turns out Art handcuffs Helena, and he tells her, basically, that she's safe. He's going to keep her safe. But he does take away all the sharp objects from her, because it's kind of like a mental asylum for her, because, you know, he knows she cuts herself. He knows that she tries to kill herself. He knows that she's suicidal. He knows all this stuff about her. And he's taken away all the sharp objects so she doesn't try to kill herself or something like that. So, obviously, that's kind of like a mental asylum almost. So, it's basically her own mental asylum, but she's comfortable there. He will be the one to figure out what the Proletheans said to her. So, that's what he wants to do. So, then we get a scene with the Proletheans. We see Henrik and his wife. And he says it's been 12 hours, and Gracie hasn't told them what really happened with Helena. Now, I thought Gracie was killed by Helena, but it turns out that's not the case. They've actually sewed her mouth shut, which is just, that is so creepy, literally. That is the creepiest thing ever. But Rachel's watching her old family videos. I thought that was Sarah's videos, but it turns out it was Rachel's. But Paul then comes up to her. She tells him that he is to report data to Dr. Leekie, but he works for Rachel. When her parents died, Leekie becomes her guardian, but now her position is higher than him, and she says he becomes too attached and can't make the hard choices. And I loved this next scene. This next scene was amazing. Art starts questioning Helena about Maggie Chen. Basically, who is Maggie Chen? What does she have to do with Helena? And she's wondering why she was running away from the Proletheans. Why was Helena so scared of them? You know, also, why is Helena so creepy and demented? That's something we've wanted to know for a lot of the series, and we finally find out in this episode, which was amazing. Helena tells him that when she was 7, the nuns told her that she had the devil inside her, and they locked her in a cellar. She tells Art that Maggie had a locker, but nothing more. Well, you know, that's a pretty big thing. Basically, that's why she's so creepy, because she's always thought that she was the devil. That she was a devil child, and that is why she was so demented and everything. That's why she's so creepy, and I think that's great, because they're really getting us to care more for Helena, and I think that's fantastic. Mark then comes in to visit Gracie with some milk, and says he wants to help Gracie, but he's being sent after Helena. She's supposed to carry the child, and he thinks Gracie should confess, and then he kisses her. Basically, he's telling her, tell Helena about the child, because I don't think Helena even knows about the child. I don't think she does. I think Helena is not even aware of it, and it's definitely very interesting there, because Helena needs to know about this whole thing, and it's definitely very interesting that she doesn't know. So, Mark then comes in to visit, I just read that, then we get probably the grossest scene in the episode, but also probably the first really intense scene. Felix is at his place. He's getting ready for a date with the morgue attendants, Colin, as they're all, you know, they're starting to have sex and everything. But then the cops show up to take Colin into the precinct and start searching his apartment. Sarah sees the cop cars and runs away, and then Paul shows up. And when Paul shows up, he then has the gun Daniel had and used to kill, and he uses it to kill a cop. He gets Felix to hold it, linking him to the crime. I thought that Paul was just going to kill Felix right then and there, but that ended up not happening. So, yeah, that is very, very interesting there, and that whole thing was definitely really interesting. So, yeah, I definitely thought that was a very interesting scene. So, basically, what ends up happening after that is that, oh, sorry, I just turned my phone off. Getting all these emails. Basically, Paul then calls Sarah, tells him she has until morning to deliver Helena, Kira, and herself before they link Felix to the murder. And that is a huge thing. He's telling her that you better deliver them now, or else we will blame Felix for this murder. And I think that is a huge thing, and it's gonna be, you know, that was a really big thing. We did not see Felix after that scene, by the way, so that's definitely gonna be very interesting to see what happens there. Sarah then calls Art, and she calls him because she's going to figure out if what Rachel says is real or if it's just a lie. So he then realizes that Helena got out of her cuffs when she grabs him from behind, and Sarah gets to the apartment and Helena escapes. But not before leaving another paper fortune tells with riddles for Sara and Art to solve. Basically, you know, they're trying to find out where Helena went and everything. And then Henrik undoes Gracie's mouth so she can talk, because he wants her to be able to talk. She explains to her father that she was protecting them, and if Gracie helps get Helena back, all will be fine. But if she doesn't, then she will carry the baby herself. Now, I'm thinking that the reason that that's such a bad thing is because the baby is the devil, basically. The baby is going to be a demon child, and that's what's going to happen when it comes back. That baby is going to end up being a demon child, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen, is that the baby's going to be a demon. I don't know. I could be wrong with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Cosima and Delphine then sneak into Leekie's office, but then he shows up. He says he didn't hold back anything, but that Rachel is holding back further testing. She explains that Sara had a photo of two forefathers of the original clone experiment. Leekie also explained that several years ago, there was a fire in their lab, and along with the scientists who died, the original gnome was destroyed. So, they lost Cosima's history, and along with it, the records of the synthetic sequences in her DNA. So, Cosima then says she has no idea what Sara has come across. She doesn't know what Sara has come across or anything like that. So, Leekie believes her as a sign of good faith, decides he will proceed with the treatment. So, he's going to try to cure Cosima. I don't know if he's going to be able to, but we're going to have to see what's going to happen there. So, yeah, we're going to have to see if he's going to be able to get rid of the cure for Cosima. I don't know if he will. I guess we'll just have to see. But basically, but then Cal and Kira are camping out. A cop comes to visit Cal and Kira. He wants to see his ID and registration, and when he was going to inspect the trailer, Kira comes by with a trick-or-treat bit that gets the cops to let them off. She basically just tries to come across as an innocent little girl, and that was definitely an interesting scene. So then this is when the episode just gets amazing here. It was awesome. Art and Sara show up at a storage locker that lined up with the coordinates on the fortune teller. They think it's Maggie Chen's locker, and she used it to give Helena a place to stay. So that's where they think she went. They find more photos of Esther Duncan. One of them recently taken, which means he could possibly be alive. Art then finds a sniper rifle case, but the rifle was taken out. Above it was a doll that looked like Rachel, and Sara realizes what Helena is planning. Helena is planning to kill Rachel. And I thought she was going to kill Rachel in that scene, but she ended up not killing Rachel, which I was a little surprised about, but she didn't kill Rachel. So, yeah, that was definitely interesting that she didn't do that. She decided not to go through with it. And while this was happening, it looked like, Rachel was trying to get Paul to have sex with her, and they started to have sex with him on a chair. Helena's about to shoot when Art and Sara show up, telling her to stop. Sara basically tells Helena that they have Felix. She tells her the whole thing that's going on with Felix. And if she kills Rachel, they're going to keep him there. And she says Helena is the only one who can help her find Swan Man. And Helena thinks she just wants to use her. So then they have a very heartfelt confession from Sara. She decides to put down the gun, and Art is just thinking, what's going on here? That's the pretty big thing. So then the last two scenes of the episode, Cosima gets the injection from Leekie, but it's just a germal test to see how her body responds. It's not treating, he didn't make the cure yet. So Cosima tells Leekie the clones have a proposition for him. They want to know if he likes beer. So then Sara shows up and shows him the picture of Esther Duncan, telling that Felix must go free, but Leekie informs Sara that they have to find Ethan before anything can happen, and that Cosima is sick, so they have to try to help Cosima, and they have to also find Ethan. So Paul followed Dr. Leekie, spying for Rachel, and now Leekie tells Paul to come to him first, but Paul walks away. And then basically, the very last scene, we see Helena, Rachel goes up to her, and they tell her she needs to go to the river, the place of screams. So Helena and Rachel, they're going to go somewhere else, so that way Helena's safe, and there's a lot going on now. I'm thinking that, they have to now protect Felix, because if Felix is if Felix is blamed for that murder, then very bad shit could happen to him, so that's not going to be good there. So obviously, they have to give Helena to Rachel at some point. I do think I think the finale is building up to a final face-off between I think the final, it's going to be a final face-off between Rachel and Sara. I think that's how this season is going to end. It's going to be a huge face-off between them. We're at the half point of the season now, so it's very, very big now. And as I said, this was by far the best episode of the season. There's a lot going on besides that. Also, what's going to happen with Helena and the Proletheans? Is she going to find out about the child she has? I think she will. Will Gracie help them find Helena? We'll have to see what happens there. Also, what's going to happen with Felix in the meantime? Now that he's locked up there, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know where he's going to go or if they're going to bring him along for the ride. And also, they need to now find Ethan. They need to figure out what's going on with Ethan, where he is. And they need to find out what his whole story is. So I'm wondering what's going to happen with Ethan, if they're going to find him. And also, will Dr. Leekie be able to cure Cosima? We need to know what's going to happen there. I'm thinking he will be able to, because Cosima's a huge character. I don't think they kill her off. We'll have to see what happens there. But as I said, this was the best episode of the season. I loved every minute of it. Everything was amazing in this episode. It's really building to a great, last half of the season. The first half of the season's over. We have 6 episodes left, and I can't wait for the rest of this season. So yeah, that's it for my review of Orphan Black. That's it for my review. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Again, best episode of the season by far. I really hope the next episode is this amazing. But that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for my review of In the Flesh. So see you then. Bye.